how do you stay passionate when you're not reaching your monetary goals or
Yeah, like the podcast, is it, first of all, it does it, like, does it eventually, and when you do your podcasting, does it eventually help you break even, like, financially?
that's
Or if
okay.
it
So
doesn't,
yeah,
like, is it a passion
great
thing?
question. I think the best way for me to answer that is probably well, number one, it is not. I'll be very transparent in front of you and everybody that's watching. God Gigs is not a is not a huge pillar of my income production. No, it's not. Um, does it have to? Has it led to huge parts of my income? Yes. Like my best example of how this particular thing does not necessarily directly have the income production that I would love it to have, of course, but that it led to it is because the full-time job I have at my church is because I did God and Gigs podcast, and my pastor looked at me and said, "You do a podcast? Okay, produce ours." And I went from being a part-time worship band director to being full-time worship band director and podcast producer. So just do the math on how much, my salary, obviously, you can just, I'm not doing like putting out my numbers there, but yeah, like it obviously went to full-time income that was sustainable for me to take on that position. So, um, in terms of the individual, like, hey, is this making money? And does am I distracted or discouraged because it's not making money? I would have to answer it in terms of me looking at the why, right? Number one, the why, and then not just the why, but I don't want to be like just super woo woo about it. Yes, the passion has to be about I do this as if it didn't matter if it was going to make money, but I also know that, like my coach Sam says, money makes the mission possible. So I'm doing this with an eye of how does this each step I make build a brick that will lead to something that's profitable, lead to something that has the sustainability that can actually create like the business model that will create recurring income. That's what I'm doing right now. Everything I'm doing is based on businesses like this that have these attributes can create reoccurring sustainable income that could even outlast me if I put the pieces in place. So really that's how I stay passionate because I know I'm doing the right things. Long story short, I'm doing what Alex Hormozy is doing, and he's making $100 million a year. I'm doing what Shane Sams is doing. I'm doing what, I am doing what other creatives are doing in the process that they're doing it. And when they've done it and had that infrastructure, when the spigot actually turned, the income flowed. So I stay passionate, or I don't get discouraged because I remember that the steps I'm taking are the right steps, even though I don't see the results right now. Because it's literally like planting the seeds, and I just like, okay, it doesn't look like it's working, but I've seen the template work, I've seen the blueprint work, and I'm not like, and I also can say that very honestly, when it hasn't produced income, I can usually point back not to necessarily the thing I'm doing and say that's not working. I can point back to my effort and say I didn't really go wholeheartedly into that. Like I kind of, you know what I mean? Like you kind of can look
Yeah.
at it and you could be like, I didn't really try as hard because I was scared that it wasn't going to make money, and then I kind of held back and it didn't make money. It's like you got what you had what you had. It's the faith thing, right? Like I didn't really have faith in this, so I held back a little bit and I didn't quite push it. And then if I did it again, if I did it 110%, I know the mistakes I made the first time where I know that it could produce more income. But long story short, affiliate marketing, um, all the things that like could bring in income. Obviously, this is a recurring thing with God and Gigs 360. It's a membership. Um, the podcast, I've never specifically monetized. The podcast is still basically like my discovery tool. So I've never tried to look for sponsorships for the podcast, but I could. But it's not necessarily where I think that's the power of that is. So I think it's still in the community. I know I'm building a community, and I know if I build a community with the right kind of framework, that people will pay to be a part of it. And my experience and my knowledge and gifting that God's given me provides me a way to share that knowledge in a way that like people will pay me to offer it. So I know I'm doing the right process. And that's the part I want to be very transparent about. Like there's like this particular like the member calls, as much as they energize me, when it's like, man, is this really working? Is anyone coming? Is anybody coming? Is anybody watching the podcast? You see the dip in the stats, and you're like, yeah, like you just have to remind yourself to just like Jesus said, like you have to like endure the cross, despising the shame for the joy set before you. Like it's got to be that, because it is demoralizing. The numbers can be demoralizing. The Like you said, the money, the time, feeling like I didn't really have time to put, like, again, like I know God and Gigs could grow if I like just dropped everything and just did nothing but this. I'm very sure I can build this thing up, but I can't blame the time. I have to look at, okay, here's the resources God gave me. Here's the grace for the season I'm in. How am I maximizing that, right? Versus
Hmm.
how big should it have been had I been like full time, out here speaking every other day, and like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's not giving yourself a pass, but it's being very, like you said, I think you said earlier, like being self aware, like really thinking about, like, okay, here's where I'm at. Like, I can't pretend like this is not reality. I could just make the most of it. So I think that's how I stay motivated. Like the depth of the conversations, and whether or not I could have better conversations with people that then would, whether it's in the music, obviously same thing. Like I know if I want to do more in terms of music and build more income in music, I got to get more serious about my platform. Period.
Yeah. Oof.
So I'm aware of it. It's just it's again, it's that wholeheartedness. Like how much am I willing to pour into it? And then I think it goes back to the productivity thing you said. If I'm going to be in these spaces, what do I have to say no to right now?
Yes.
Like, because I
Hmm.
have to say no to those things. Because if I'm just spinning my wheels trying to do 100 things, what was the quote? The artist that tries to do everything perfectly succeeds in doing nothing.
Nothing. Yes.
Yeah. My friend, thank you for watching this episode. If that blessed you, you got to make sure that you stay connected with this community and this channel so that you can get more where that came from. We're sharing great interviews, tactics, strategies, mindsets, lifestyle choices, everything that's going to help you become a totally confident creative. And don't miss an episode of the God Gig Show. If you are staying connected to our channel, you'll be able to find us anytime we release new episodes. And you can check out some of our archives of almost 200 episodes now that we've shared over the last few years. Make sure you check out one of the suggestions right now, because it's probably perfect for you to continue to develop as a creative. And continue to stay connected with us, because we're here to help you become the creative that God created you to be. We'll see you in the next episode.